Previously on Glass of Water.
We're gonna get into this next time, but Celestia's current status as an ineffectual leader are not actually character problems. They're broad, sweeping storytelling problems independent of her character.
You know, one thing I generally frown upon is the use of video game nomenclature to describe aspects of another medium. For instance, upon her introduction, Flurry Heart was decried as overpowered, a term used to describe abilities in a video game that the developers did not design their encounters around. But as time goes on, I find myself leaning in the direction of it being a valid approach to take in regards to storytelling. Now, obviously, this goes much deeper than a simple buzzword. This shit always does. So let's take a look at this approach by its most egregious offender, Twilight's Kingdom. I chose Twilight's Kingdom not because it's bad, but because the vast majority of the fanbase immediately spotted the storytelling flaws upon its airing, and that makes it the best candidate to get my point across. Let's go! You remember how I said that a royal problem was working backwards from the premise, let's have evil Celestia because that would be cool? Twilight's Kingdom is working backwards from the premise, let's have Twilight fight a demon because that would be cool. This part of the episode was written first, and everything else is a contrivance around getting us there. So in order for this premise to work, we have to get all of Equestria's magic into Tirac, and all of the princess's magic into Twilight. This is why Celestia sends Discord to search for Tirac in the first place, because sending literally anybody else would end the conflict before it even begins. Discord goes, and because his turning over a new leaf is still doubted by both the cast and the audience at this point, he's easily swayed into betrayal, and so he can use his magic to better help Discord absorb more magic. Upon learning about this, Celestia decides to hide all the Alicorn magic within Twilight. Why not just have everyone go attack him now? Again, that would end the conflict right away, and we still want to get to that fight. This is why the justification Tirac does not know there is a fourth Alicorn princess doesn't ever address the problem that Discord knows, despite it already being apparent at this point that Discord has betrayed them and he's in league with Tirac. Twilight gets the magic, Discord tells Tirac about Twilight, and they immediately set about baiting a trap for her. This is also why Celestia tells Twilight not to tell her friends, because their magic needs to be sapped as well, and if they know, they'll be too capable at handling it. And also why Discord doesn't ever suspect that Tirac might betray him, despite this literally being his area of expertise. Then we blow up Twilight's books to make her angry enough to actually go and fight the insufferable bastard, and then we get that fight scene we've been stumbling toward for the entire episode. This is a story that is so poorly balanced that it has to continuously give characters the idiot ball in order for it to actually work. Even one smart decision at all, at any point in the story, will completely unravel it. Twilight's Kingdom is the most egregious with this, but it's a common element among every major conflict-driven episode with the exception of one. The princesses, or in some cases the main six, have to be removed from play or the episode doesn't work. Why? Because they're all exceptionally powerful, and that means they cannot coexist with a conflict that can be solved by brute force. If all your problems can be solved by killing the antagonist, then a character like Princess Celestia is already too well equipped to deal with the problem that you have to do something about it. In that case, you have two options. One, remove them from the story, either by having them captured, defeated within a second, or being suicidally pacifist. Two, don't write a conflict that can be solved by brute force. As you probably guessed, good storytelling favors the latter. Good writers will use characters like Princess Celestia as a restriction on them to write more complicated conflicts that cannot be solved by brute force alone. Extremely powerful characters that are synonymous with God forces a good writer to be more creative with their conflicts and organically create tension. It acts as a gate preventing you from just reaching for the overcompensating penis laser times 20 because you already know that shit's not going to work. When you introduce a character like Celestia into a conventional how do we defeat the evil power story, the entire balance of the characters in play is thrown off. This kind of storytelling relies on the villain being infinitely more powerful than the heroes, necessitating that the heroes fight smarter. But when the balance is flipped to be in favor of the heroes, so many stories just can't seem to grasp the concept of the villain fighting smarter, and as such have to hamstring the heroes in some way in order to falsify a sense of drama. This, incidentally, is the real reason that Superman and Batman have no kill rules, because killing Lex Luthor or the Joker would mean that those characters can't be recurring villains, and the balance of power is so heavily shifted in the hero's favor that an excuse needs to be made for why they don't just kill the brutal psychopath who kills thousands every day. Oftentimes, you don't even need to hamstring the character's power, just hamstring their critical thinking ability. A recurring theme of Friendship is Magic is that you shouldn't use magic to solve your problems, a theme that's undermined by the fact that magic easily solves everybody's problems with little to no actual downsides. The only real downsides are minor ethical implications that are made irrelevant by the potential consequences of inaction, so this has to be countered in some way. The lazy method of doing this is by having magic either backfiring in some ridiculous way, or having side effects that only make sense in Bizarro Land. The explanation for the bat's personality being beamed into Fluttershy's brain was very obviously yanked right out of someone's ass lubricated with desperate sweat in order to make the idea of using magic to solve your problems seem less ideal than it really is. This is particularly egregious in Season 7 Starlight episodes where the theme ends up being, you shouldn't use magic to solve your problems, even though you just did and it worked out just fine.
Quick! Do you have a spell that will make the spa ponies forget that the map table was there?
Haven't you learned anything about using magic to solve your problems?
No.
The creative method of doing this is having other elements in play disallowing that to work. Twilight knows that a reforming spell would definitely work on Discord, and Discord knows that too, which is why he eats the book that contains them. Discord is too smart to be taken down by brute force. We don't need to get into make-believe ethics about using magic to solve your problems, because we have a real answer to that problem. Another fine example of this is the Crystalling, where the conflict of the episode cannot be solved by just hurling magic at it. They have to find a book that tells them how to repair the crystal heart, and no amount of alicorn magic is going to make that happen any quicker. So the princesses can actually contribute by holding off the storm, and so they're removed from play in a manner that isn't absolute nonsense. Smart storytelling organically deals with the problem of having extremely powerful princesses in the room and also Celestia. For an entire series based on this idea, look at Lois and Clark, which has to work around the ultimate problem: why doesn't Superman stop the bad guy? The answer is, we don't know who the bad guy is, and so the series acts as one part detective show and one part romantic comedy. Once the bad guy's identity is unveiled, Superman swoops in, save the day, and we're done. The fun was getting to that point, and the writers had all sorts of answers for why Superman couldn't save the day right then and there. You're right, it was usually kryptonite. In Friendship is Magic, the answer to the problem, why doesn't Celestia just solve the problem, is usually, I don't know, because the writers don't even bother to answer these questions most of the time and just bullshit Celestia and Luna out of the plot so that they don't have to. That's a problem because it very quickly makes stories themselves unengaging, and we've got 5 alicorns now. You can't tie them all down just because you want to shove your new favorite OC in our faces. That quickly gets old, even for small children. No good writer stacks all their engagement on the climax. Getting to the climax should be just as engaging, otherwise all you're doing is balancing out a tedious walk down the hallway on a 90% humidity summer day with the promise of ice cream at the end, and you end up with a mediocre experience overall. And people aren't just going to ignore it. This method of storytelling has been the source of all of Celestia's criticisms over the last few years, whether the people complaining about it realize it or not, and it was so nakedly obvious in Twilight's Kingdom that even the dumbest motherfuckers in the room recognized it. And if DHX doesn't do something about their over-reliance on brute force conflicts, I can't imagine the MLP movie being anything other than a 90-minute pain train, because it's boring. That's what it is. Boring. Brute force conflicts are fucking boring.